I took 5 grams of mushrooms very soon after COVID was big news, probably like a month or two after. And I've never done that high a dose of mushrooms in my life. And uh, I don't know if I was getting messages or what, but there was a lot of underlying like ideas or something input about, just like mega power countries like United States. Somehow China was like a huge influence in that. And then I was thinking about like South America. I mean, obviously there's other, you know, countries and continents, but I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying. So, all right, let's get going.
You had visions, but with 5 grams in Silent Darkness, sometimes those visions are hard to recall.
Well, exactly. This is the thing, man. I started in Silent Darkness, but very quickly after it started kicking, I was like, I can't do this. I turned the lights on and I was sitting in my room and just kind of, it was weird. Man, have you heard of, not to take up the whole combo, but have you heard of synesthesia?
Mm-hmm.
I was seeing time, and I don't know if that's one of the things of synesthesia or not, but it was literally like there was this timeline of just life and like thoughts and stuff that was just like slow. It was like this infinity timeline thing that was just kind of right in front of my eyes. I don't know how to explain it other than like it was just moving slowly and sometimes quickly, and then it was like seeing things like future events and then past events, and how I don't know, man. You know, who knows what happens in that state, but something with that and language was a very big thing. I was like, almost like I say this, but I don't know how accurate it is. It's like I unlearned language that night, and then or like went back in time through language and like kind of like learned like the basics of it. Not, not a whole complete lesson on it, but something. Anyway,
that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it was. I've never done a 5 gram, but I was told, that's the punch dose, the dose to really get you there. And shit, man, it was.
I've gotten there with way less, my friend, but yeah. It's the guaranteed getting there, I guess.
Right. Well, Terrence says, and whatever, but he says, the problem with mushrooms is people don't take enough.
Yeah.
He goes, the point to get is where you think you've taken too much.
It's hilarious. That's one philosophy around it.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was an extremist, or somewhat, when it comes to mushrooms and psilocybin.
Oh yeah, Terrence. He was the one. He was the guy.
Yeah. Somehow I was thinking about him towards the end of the trip, where I was literally sitting there drooling on myself, and I was like, wow, this must be what Terrence feels like when he takes this one. Just like babbling and blah, blah, blah. You're trying to make sense out of like language or vocal sounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I was at my parents' house, and I like walked downstairs, and they were watching this British show. But I swear, when I first heard it, it wasn't English. I mean, it was, because it was a British show, but I was not hearing English. I was literally hearing like this alien language, and it was like, I don't know what was going on, but it was so coherent. Like I could hear it, so like it wasn't like jumbled or anything. It was a very coherent language that I'd never heard of before, but it wasn't English. It was a British show, so it was. But what I'm saying is, like, on the influence of the mushrooms, it was like there was something else like underlying the English language that was going into it, and that's what I was hearing.
Damn, that's cool.
So did you understand it? Like, did you comprehend what was being sent through?
No, but I wasn't scared of it either. I was just kind of like, there's something going on in language that we're not fully attuned to when we're like sober,
Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah. This is the thing. Whenever I take a large dose of, psychedelics, which I don't really do that often. But whenever I do, there's so much like history and archaic like meaning and in symbols, and like you hear things, and it was just very like archaic in the way of the way it was. It was very archaic.
Yeah.
Interesting
Pretty
word
interesting.
choice.
Yeah.
Terrence McKenna wrote the Archaic Revival, and that's the whole idea, was that this is the time we're living in, is the revival of these old ideas that we have somewhere in our unconsciousness or in our DNA, and they're coming about now because of things like psilocybin and DMT. It's like bringing out this sacred lost knowledge that's within us. And when
Yeah.
we do these things, we get these downloads that aren't even really comprehensible. Like it's like they're downloads into our unconscious brain, and then they're
Yeah.
just there. I don't know.
And I mean, that's what it felt like. It felt, well, this is my question. I mean, DNA is impressionable, right? Like when it holds on to information. Now, I think it does it on a level where we're not conscious of, right? Like, so like when I'm on a high dose and my ego, or really my, whatever you want to call it, my base level brain, consciousness is kind of like, so there's like a piece of it that's like shed, and then you're like deeper in it. And it's like every time I do that, there's like ancient and archaic meaning through everything, not even just someone talking or someone walking, like just looking at it. It's like there's something deeper here that like you can get it, you can kind of feel like the ancestral like being or some entity that's there, not like one entity, but just like the whole life is just like a little, it's like you can really get deeper. And I think it'd be cool to like really study that somehow. I don't know how we could study that, but maybe, get people that are very highly intelligent on mushrooms and just have them like record it. And maybe like, I guess it's anecdotal kind of at that point, unless you can like really figure something out, but to, make it a legitimate study. But I know there's something to it. And you know what, the first time I did it with the ayahuasca, I mean, it helps me in so many ways, because I stopped using drugs overnight, and for a long time. So there's something there. It did something. I don't know. It's hard in this day and age to pinpoint exactly what it was that it did, but I know you guys know. I know you guys know what I'm talking about because of your life experiences and knowledge and stuff.
Yeah.
And then,
go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, and then I don't know. I was just gonna say like weed is like very different, but it's also like, I don't know. To me, it's like there's more things going on with weed. It's almost like more confusing. It's harder to just like sit and be still. Whereas with that, where the psychedelics, you kind of have to sit and be still.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I got really high last night, and it was just out of this world, man. I don't understand how some people can just smoke weed and it's like nothing to them, and they just kind of, just that's it. It's just like kind of drinking a beer or something.
I think it's practice and habit.
Yeah,
like,
that's true. Tolerance.
Like I have a friend who smoked literally every single day. I think he said he's like 1 or 2 days didn't smoke in 17 years of his life, ever since he was 13.
Shit. I think when you start in your life as well also has an impact. Like starting really young versus starting in your adult years, I think will have a different impact on you and your relationship to it as well. At least, 100%. Again, I started when I was 27, so I was well out of my teenage years, and I feel like I do it daily. But I'm like,
did you ever smoke before 27?
I tried it. Yeah, I didn't like it. Didn't like it. Yeah, but I thought it was stupid. When I was younger, I was like, why would I want to pay for something that makes me lazy and hungry when I can pay for something that makes me feel like a god? I was into different substances back then, but yeah, no, like I'm a daily user. I don't do it a lot during the week, but what I was going to say is it still hits me hard, man. I do it regularly and it still hits me hard. It's not like
Did I ever tell you about how I got into weed, or like my first experience with it? I was like 13, and I got it from like a friend of one of my sister's friends that was older, and I went and I smoked it by myself, and I was like immediately like, this is such a sacred or something, such a revelatory experience that I had with it. But then I did it more and more, and then eventually I had other people do it with me, and it just got watered down. The whole, it wasn't as pure and as influential, I guess, didn't make on me as I did when I did it alone the first few times. But yeah, then I think, other pressures come in, and it ruins it in a way. It can. So like at that age, so I kind of stopped. I probably smoked a lot, from 13 to 16, but then I stopped for a long, I pretty much never really went back to it after, 17 years old. And until recently. And recently when I do it, I try to do it. I do it very intentionally. I sit alone a whole day, and, a lot of, basically the ritual of doing it if you're able to set what I'm able to do is set a large time of that day to it, I think that, well, again, to reference Terrence again, I don't think a lot of people have seen this. It's only had like a few thousand views, but there's this one video, or it's a video, but it's him talking. It's just him saying, he goes, I don't think I smoke weed the right way. I think the right way is to do it once a week in silent darkness and immense amounts of it. That's like,
yeah, that was his whole shtick, right?
Yeah, immense amounts, and basically, don't stop until you think you've done too much, and then I think what his idea is, you kind of like, take, I don't know if you write down, take notes or what, you just kind of reflect, I guess, and so I think that was part of the influence behind our Sunday ritual, was like, if we can not do it all week and then do a bunch of it one day, not that we do a bunch of it, but at that point, if you're only doing it once a week, you don't need much to really get there.
True.
But yeah, it's controversial because he advocates for so much immense amounts, and it's like,
yeah. Well, and that's his philosophy, right? He's entitled to it. It works for him, or maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Only he knows. But yeah, I find that like small amounts are just as effective. It's just in a different way, right? Small amounts just kind of magnify things and enhance things that are already in you, whereas when you take larger doses, it kind of takes over the whole process in my experience. So
yeah, that's a good point.
And also with psychedelics, the more I take, the more I find that the things that I see and the things that I experience and the realizations that I have are like just beyond the scope of my rational intellect to process. So it's like, if I take relatively smaller doses and I do intentional work and meditate and stuff, I get very meaningful messages about my life, about the world, about what I need to be doing differently, et cetera, et cetera. When I go bigger, it's like, oh, let me just rip the freaking fabric of the universe open and show you how things work from behind the scenes. And it's like, oh God, what the fuck am I seeing? And then it's like, oh, and by the way, did you know that the universe has a pulse? And then it's like, oh shit, everything's pulsing. And it's just like, now take a look at the moon for a second. It's just like, it's like everything's just too much. It's beautiful and it's intense and it's like,
that was wonderfully said.
But you know what I mean? But then it's like afterwards, I'm like, okay, that was really cool. It's like going on a ride at Disneyland. It's like, that was a lot of fun and that was beautiful and amazing, but it doesn't actually give me anything at this point anyways to work with. You know what I mean? It's just like, wow.
It's like going on a ride in Disney World when you're like 4 years old, because nowadays when I do it, it's not as wholesome and just like wondrous as it was when I was that young, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Now it's like, okay, I've been here before. I've done this, it's like, but yeah,
it's amazing. But yeah, it's less practically useful. It's more like in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's like, Krishna, show me what you really look like. And there's this like whole chapter of just like, and then he revealed his true nature. And there was 1,000,000 flaming mouths consuming entire galaxies. And there were 1,000,000 eyeballs looking at Arjuna. And it's like, and then after like 5 minutes, Arjuna's like, all right, dude, can you go back to being just a human now? I can't handle this shit. It's like, that to me is like the perfect capturing of a psychedelic trip. It's like, whoa, okay, I'm good. Thank you.
I have a question. Do you think anybody can get to that state? Like anybody practically can get there?
Yeah, I think you can get there with and without substances, to be totally honest with you, because
but you
think, are drugs.
Right, as Dennis McKenna says, and that's a true statement right there. I mean, we are made up of.
And I've had psychedelic trips with no psychedelics before. And I've had, probably the most psychedelic trip I ever had was on weed when I was, again, one of the few times I did it as a young person, probably why I didn't like doing it. Was when I was like 17 or 16, I did it with a group of friends and everybody smoked the same thing. We were all using the same bong. Nobody laced my shit or anything like that. But I literally went to the end of time and I saw the beginning and the end of reality, to the point where my friends called an ambulance on me because they thought I was dying. I was the only one though. Like nobody else at that party or whatever had any experience like that. I smoked it and then it was like everything started to deteriorate and I literally watched the entire universe around me disintegrate until there was just one grain of sand or one particle left. I wasn't even there anymore. And I was like, Holy fuck. What's happening?
I want
Again.
to take your experience and then extrapolate it, like what would come after that. And your experience may be different, but I've heard of a lot of examples of that happening to people. And then afterwards, them getting not ridiculed, but kind of like looked at like they're not normal or something.
I didn't tell anybody about this experience until like a year and a half ago. I literally told nobody about this until the year and a half ago.
Well, I guess
I was embarrassed. I was like, oh.
I'm wondering like what your friends thought.
I didn't tell them. Oh, what my friends thought, like that were there. Yeah, they thought I was having some kind of reaction. And then when the ambulance, so get this, I fall down. In reality, I fall and hit my head on a propane tank. Okay.
Ooh.
In my experience, I'm watching the death and the birth of the universe. I come out of it laughing and crying and going, I saw it. And my friends are like, what? Are you all right, man? Like, they're concerned. I'm like, and I was happy. I was like, holy shit. There is no end. There is no beginning. It's just the end is the beginning. So we don't need to worry about shit ending. But I couldn't explain it. I was like 16. So then they're like, whoa, they get me up, sit me on the couch. Then this fucking paramedic walks in. And that was a bad move. Then I start getting like aggressive. So they had to like restrain me. They take me into the hospital. My parents come and pick me up. It was just like this crazy experience. And everybody else was like, what the fuck happened? Everybody else smoked the same thing. And I was just like, went off the deep end. So yeah, but I don't know what they thought. Actually, they didn't really mention it and then didn't say anything of it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy, man. I think cannabis affects other people's brains, certain people's brains a lot differently than the popular majority. Like there's some people that it affects and can blast you off into a psychedelic experience, and then most people, for some reason, it just doesn't hit the same. It's just kind of like a sensual pleasure type of experience. But there's for some reason, there's some people's minds that are built in some way that allows cannabinoids to be able to go in there and just reveal things and become like more powerful than even DMT or psilocybin. For some reason, I don't know why. We got to do more research.
Have you guys eaten edibles?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, dude, that's a whole other experience.
Like, if you eat enough,
I love it.
See, I had a friend who gave me brownies recently, and I ate like a quarter of it, and I was gone. But then I ate. There's this like bag of THC Cheetos that were going around, 600 milligrams, and there's only like 10 Cheetos in it. I literally ate 1.5, and I was like, if I ate this whole thing, I don't know if I'd come back. I don't know where I'd go. I mean, physiologically speaking, yes, I'd come back to normal, but like that's a scary. I still have the Cheetos. I'm like, I don't know if I want when I want to eat them, if I want to eat them. They're just like, also when you eat it, it's like it's actually a different experience because I think your body, breaks it down differently than when you smoke it, right? So it's actually a different drug experience.
Totally, way more psychedelic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finding the right dose is magical, though.
Definitely.
When you get to the right dose, it's like I go to the beach. I can have the right dose and surrounded by people and swimming with my kids and having fun. Like it turns me back into a child when I take the right amount.
See, I used to have the belief that like it doesn't matter with weed. You can take a bunch or a little bit. It's all going to get you, because I used to be, maybe I was just a lightweight or something, but I was just like, any amount is just like the same, but it's not true. I mean, that's what I'm coming to realize lately. It's like you can really, break it down to a little science. And like you said, if you get the right dose, it's like you said, it's magical. Like you can, it's like when I get the right dose, I have just as much confidence as I normally would, maybe even like a little more, but it's not with the downfalls of normal confidence that like, oh, I'm acting a little, what's the word? Arrogant or ignorant or just like a little outside of who I really am. It's like if I get the right dose, I can just do things that I normally wouldn't allow myself to do because of insecurities and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, it's the herb. It's a mystery. I've smoked it probably thousands of times, and I still every time I'm like, what is this experience? I'm like, why? Right. Like, how is this even possible? That it like just within like, so let's say I did it now. I'm not gonna do it, but 10 seconds from smoking now would be a totally different perception on my point after smoking cannabis.
Right.
And it's unexplainable. You can't explain it to somebody that's never done it. You just have to do it. Just like any experience or any drug, to be honest with you. But cannabis is tricky, man, because it's dose dependent. It's external environment dependent. It's who you are, like who your brain how your makeup is dependent. It's very mysterious.
I want to touch on that one.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say real quick, I think it works on sub-perceptual levels, but also perceptual levels. So it's not just like one thing. It's not like, oh my God, I'm feeling this. It's like there's multiple layers to it that makes it even almost more confusing to figure out. Go ahead, Oliver.
Yeah. So you said, Gary, the type of person that you are, your psychological makeup and things like that. So do you think that everybody has these experiences? Like you were saying, some people, they have it and they don't have these types of experiences. They don't have what you're describing. I have a friend, Cressa, who's I think she's in her 70s. She doesn't get high. She's like, I want to try it with you. I'm like, all right, let's do it. It's legal here, whatever. She has problems sleeping sometimes. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. Tried vaporizing with her. She's like, I don't feel anything. And like tried smoking a joint with her. I don't feel anything. And it's like, oh, wow, interesting. It's like she doesn't have the receptors or something. But anyways, the point being, do you think that the fact that you meditate, do yoga, again, have sort of reshaped your mind deliberately since embarking on this path? Do you think that that might be why cannabis has that kind of effect on you? Is it more random? I mean, same with you, Rory. You do it in a ritualized setting where you're doing deep work, so your intentionality around it is very different. So do all of those things play into the experience, or is it just luck of the draw, or does weed lead us to become more like this, which is why we, you know what I mean, start doing the inner work, or you know what I mean? Like what's the connection there? Like seems like there is one.
Yes.
Yes.
All three of them. I think it is our genetic makeup. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not gonna act like I did research on this, but just from my intuition.
Just say it, man.
Yeah. I think it's our genetic makeup makes up our experience. Our intention with it makes up our experience, and yes, how much our own inner work, how much work we put into our inner work makes up the experience. And that's what kind of cannabis is for me. It's a reflection tool. So if I'm already reflecting and then I need like something like just like, I don't know what it is, like something to just like get over the hump, that's what I use it as. It's kind of like just something to be able to just like quickly enable my mind to get in that meditative state. And that's just how I use it. And I don't think most people use it that way. So it's, for me, it's a large percentage of how it affects me is because of the way that I use it. It might be because how I was born. Maybe smoking weed got me into the meditative state, and the meditative lifestyle, and they just feed on each other. It's just one and the same.
Positive feedback loop. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people talked about yogis back in the day using cannabis. They still do, they just use cannabis as a meditative tool. And Shiva, he's the god of cannabis, man, of ganja. And, it goes back thousands and thousands of years as something that's just part of our arsenal of meditative tools. So I think it's just something that is supposed to be in our life as a sort of reflection process, like the process of or relationship with cannabis, and we're just neglecting that, and people don't know how to tap into that, because it's more than just smoking it. It's almost like revering it as a teacher. And if you revere it as a teacher, it'll teach you things that you probably weren't expecting. It'll definitely be there for you.
I have a couple like hypotheses.
Yeah.
Well, one of which is your friend who's elder, 70s, who doesn't get high. I feel like, if that happened to me, I'd be like, what am I in the Twilight Zone? Like, what's going on? Well, I actually saw Seth Rogen say that, so that was his reference. But I thought it was pretty funny when he said it. It's like because like Conan O'Brien, he's on like Conan O'Brien or something, and the guy he goes or something. He goes, "Do you ever smoke and not get high?" He's like, "What? No, that'd be like the Twilight Zone. That'd be weird." Like, because he smokes so much, he was like assuming like maybe he doesn't get high anymore. But I would think like for people that don't get high, it's like they're just in a different state of mind. Like they're all like. There's been times where I've smoked and not felt high, but I think it's more to say about like where my mindset was previous to smoking, and it's like if I've been, well, this is the thing. I want to draw it into this because I think it applies to the psychedelic experience. I think it applies to any altered state of mind. Now, you just said like thousands of years ago, and like thousands of years. Okay, so let me just say this: like right now, in this exact moment, there is so much going on right in front of our eyes that we can't like articulate or say. We just see, we're just perceiving it. Like this computer right in front of me, there's so much energy and molecules and stuff that make it up to be what it is. There's so much going on all the time. So even 1 year, you know, there's so much stuff that people are perceiving, so much that input. It's, you know, we have our ego, which is amazing. If we didn't have it, we wouldn't be able to, you know, see a computer the way it is and call it a computer and just be who we are. So in a way, it's really amazing that we have this. But it's like there's so much going on behind the scenes or something. And like when you take a high dose psychedelic, that's what you see. You see like you kind of see like what's going on behind the scenes, in my hypothesis. But like, so like you think of like 1,000 years, imagine how much meaning there is if in just this moment. And I know time is just a concept. It's always the moment, the present. But our brain is able to perceive time as linear. And so like if we're trying to think of things that like biblical times and stuff, it's like just from here to there was so much input all the time. And the input changes over time. So it's like, I think when you really have an intention and you're trying to think of something in particular, it's like there's so much, it's hard to really grasp that state of being because so much is going on in that moment, and so much has changed. So I think like when taking a large dose psychedelics, it's like we're able to see the energy and the molecules and whatever is made up in just a different light. But it's not to the point where I can literally see through the computer or something like that. You know, it's just like it just changes just a perceptual little bit amount to you know, be able to see things a little differently.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But yeah, you know, yeah.
In Doors of Perception, Aldous Huxley, he wrote a book called The Doors of Perception, right? It's about his own psychedelic experience with, I believe, mescaline, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But the way he describes it is very similar to what you just said. He says that like in our normal waking lives, sensory input and data comes in through a valve that's like been tightened so that you're just getting a trickle. When you take psychedelics, the valve gets opened up. So now you're receiving a lot more information that was already there. It was being filtered out by your conscious mind, right? So what you're describing about how there being so much information all the time, it's just like hard sometimes to even sort it out. But that's getting filtered out. So if you're going through your daily life, you're not getting all of the information. You're like, you've got tunnel vision. Psychedelics just open that tunnel up, right? And it's like, holy shit, there's way more to this life and reality than what I normally see when I'm just going through my sober, regular, everyday goggles, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, here, try these sunglasses on. It's like, whoa, right? So, but yeah, that information, I think what you're saying is that it's always there. And like all of the past is all here now. Like you're saying thousands of years. It's like, yeah, that those thousands of years, everything that happened, all the events that took place, that transpired, they all exist in this present moment because this present moment is a result of all of that. It's the continued evolution of all of that. Yeah, we are all of that right here and now. And yeah, sometimes psychedelics can show you that in a way that's way better than me saying it with words.
I know exactly what you mean, man. I've had this one experience where I felt like that moment in time, I felt all the events that led up to that moment in time for me to be able to be there and just perceive and directly experience that. Like I somehow, like you said earlier, Rory, like I almost felt that timeline, like how everything led up to that, like everything in the world, you know, not just in my life, like everything led up to that point for me to glimpse into the infinite, you know, to open the aperture of my perception and actually see or feel or, you know, somewhat perceive what's going on. And yeah, it's pretty powerful, man. Because, you know, when you said, you know, we hold our story of our life is this big, but the universe is this big. And that's what these things allow us to do, to take in all that's coming in. And when you realize that, you can get to some states where you can see that it's infinite. It never stops. Our egos tell us this story of like, this is how my life, like it creates templates. I was thinking about this last night. Like it creates, our egos and our minds like to create some kind of template, some kind of story around this is how my life is, like a sort of regimented schedule or structure to our lives. But there's no structure.
Flowing, baby. It's flowing.
I
Yeah.
think story is what makes us, feel like we have value, which, in a lot of ways, and everybody has story. That's life. Your life is, I mean, you can, whatever it is, you can make story out of. And I think stories are like so, what's the word? Like there's, when they're shared, they sometimes can be so visceral because the ability to relate. And somehow, I feel as though learning through story is a lot of time better than is a lot of time, I don't know, just a little more interesting or more, visceral, or whatever I'm trying to say is like, you can grasp it a little better than somebody saying, just telling me what is. It's like the idea that we can have a car or a light bulb and a computer. It's like, what is working underneath all of this to get us, it's like, anyway, but like, I'm just trying to say, like, yeah, I agree. And I think I'm trying to say, like, yeah, story is important. And I was gonna say what you just said, that experience of being able to in our normal life, we're only able to experience what we're experiencing. But when we have a high dose, psychedelics, for example, experience, you can really start to perceive a lot more. And I think I'm a proponent for that. I mean, I think, at least for myself, that that's hugely important because it gives me great appreciation and great gratitude for even just being me. Because it's like, it's almost like, I don't know, maybe for some people it doesn't, but for me, it was like, it couldn't go without gratitude. I couldn't have that experience and come back without gratitude, whether that gratitude leads to, negative behaviors and stuff, maybe because, maybe you get scared because it's like, wow, that's too much to perceive. Or it empowers one to do better. It's like, there's so much gratitude, whether, whichever way it goes. But I did find that quote, and it's just, I think it's important. It says, to make biological, it's like what you're saying, to make biological survival possible, mind at large has to be funneled through the reducing valve of the brain and nervous system. I think
Did you just find that quote, brother?
Yeah, man. You want me to send
Good
it
job.
to
you? No, that's from Aldous Huxley, right?
Yeah. Can I keep
That's
going?
it. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sorry, brother.
No, it's cool. It's cool. So to make biological survival possible, mind at large has to be funneled through the reducing valve of the brain and nervous system. What comes out on the other end is a measly trickle of the kind of consciousness which will help us to stay alive on the surface of this particular planet. To formulate and express the contents of this reduced awareness, man has invented and endlessly elaborated those symbols, systems, and implicit philosophies, which we call language. Every individual is at once the beneficiary and the victim of this linguistic tradition into which he or she has been born. The beneficiary, inasmuch as language gives access to the accumulated records of other people's experience. The victim, insofar as it confirms him in the belief that reduced awareness is the only awareness, and as it bedevils his sense of reality, so that he is all too apt to make his concepts for data his words for actual things. It's all lengthy, wordy.
No, that ties into so many things that we've already talked about, guys. You were talking about language and deconstructing language and all these things in 1 year experiences. Like, that was beautiful. Thanks for finding that, man. That's exactly the quote I was thinking about, but I could not recall it that well.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm glad you mentioned it. I don't know if you guys have read The Denial of Death, but in that, I think it was in that book, it might have been a different book, but basically the author, kind of lays it out like, if we didn't have this ego, to this valve to kind of minimize things and take them in as they are, we'd be insane. I think that gets at psychosis and schizophrenia, is when I wouldn't say they're lesser or better of a person. I wouldn't say that's about anyone, but or I wouldn't want to, politically correct. I wouldn't want to say that, but like someone like that is like, their valve is just a little bit open, a little more open. So they're perceiving more things. They can see meaning. They can see things. I don't know if it's hallucination or what. I'm still grappling with the word hallucination, because they say hallucination is what is there, but it's not really there. You're just seeing it. But like, to me, it's like, well, who's to say it's not really there?
What you're having right now is a hallucination, my friend. It's chemical reaction being put on by your brain based on, neuro
Right.
Nervous system's information, detecting things around you, and it's putting this all together into a hallucination, which we call reality. But this is just your perception of reality, which is essentially a hallucination, like a dream, if you will, except when you're dreaming, it's based on, like, it's a closed circuit, right? It's feeding off of itself, and everything that you perceive is in here already. When you're awake, it's an open circuit, whereas you're taking in information. So your hallucination is based on probably what we could say something out there, but it's not really out there. It's all in here. Everything that you're perceiving right now is in here. Like when people talk about simulation hypothesis, I'm like, this is a simulation. It's a biological simulation that your body is creating for you so that you can navigate your environment. This is not reality. We perceive like 1% of the spectrum of electromagnetism, like what we call light. You know what I mean? There's this vast spectrum, and we see like just a tiny sliver of it. Like if we actually were perceiving reality, it would be like Arjuna's trip. It would be like your psychedelic experiences. And that's why you're saying we can't function like that on a day-to-day basis. As animals, we wouldn't be able to survive if we could actually perceive things as they were. So we get this very finite, very, specific simulation that helps us to survive, essentially.
Why do you think that what you just said, that this is a simulation, why don't you think that's more renowned as an acceptance, like around the world? Like it's almost like gets into what's that word, hypothesis?
Solipsism?
No, I don't know what that means, but
solipsism is the idea that you're the only being in the universe because all you know is your own experience, and other people are not real. They're just part of your experience, essentially. It's a very interesting view, but yeah, it's partially true.
I'd love to talk about that, because I feel like everybody has to deal with that on some level, whether it's real or whether they feel it or not. At some point you have to kind of grapple with that.
Yeah.
But no, I was.
What's that, Gary?
Collective solipsism.
There we go. That's perfect. We're all alone in our simulations, but we're all together.
Yes, we're alone together.
It's true, because there's just one of us. The I in me is the I in you, brothers.
Yep.
The idea that we can even think of the word alone and have it have meaning means that we are, but we're also not, it
means we're all one, brother. Look at the word all alone, all one. That's what being alone means. That's why we're all alone.
Damn, that's good. Okay, I like that. Did you just pull that one out?
I don't know where that came from. I probably read it somewhere. I don't think that's an original concept, but it's the basis of it, right? I mean, this is the most essential truth, right? It's that there's just one thing happening, and we perceive it as different things, but it's just one big thing.
And it speaks to language. I mean, it speaks to how words are formulated. What's at the base of them? It's like, yeah, totally.
Brother, think about it this way. Your experience, if you don't have language, and if your mind is quiet, your experience is unified. What you hear, see, smell, taste, feel is all one. It's one thing happening, right? As soon as you introduce language, now you have what I see, what I hear, what I feel, what I think. But if you're just having an experience and it's without language, then you're absolutely right. Language is used to isolate and identify aspects of reality. And reality is singular, but because of language, it's exactly like that Aldous Huxley quote that you just read, man. It gives us the impression that there's all these separate things happening in a linear way, and that I'm alone and I'm separate and you're a separate person. That's all language, right? That's all linguistic.
Wow. Yep. So you're talking about language, not even just like spoken, but in our mind, like the ability to actually
concepts,
put words, you're right, to something like already kind of minimizes it and diminishes it in a way, because it has to, in order to be into words.
That's
into
right.
Thoughts, into beliefs. That's so interesting. And I think that we started this off me talking about my mushroom experience, but like I think that is getting exactly right at it. Like,
that's what it is, brother. And like, we get so caught up, like, in different languages they have, so for example, in Greek, they have like 6 different words for love, right? Because they denote the difference between agape, love without object, and eros, love of like sensual love, romantic love. There's brotherly love. There's the love of friendship, the love of parents for their children. They have different words. And so your language kind of creates your reality tunnel, right? Like in certain parts of the world, they have like 10 different words for ice because they live in the Arctic and there's different types of ice. But like for us, it's just ice. You know what I mean? Crunchy ice, smooth ice, whatever, right? So like not only does language separate and isolate, different languages create different realities. Like there's like, for example, studying like Vedantic philosophy, right? Vedic philosophy. Sanskrit has a bunch of words that we don't have real translations for in English. They talk about the manas, and it's like it's kind of like the mind, but it's not, because it includes other, you know what I mean? So like you go into this system, this other language, and it's a different reality, and there's different ideas and different things that are kind of like they don't exist in like our English, you know, mental models, or French mental models in my case. Like, so yeah, language is it's a powerful tool, but it's also like exactly like that quote, man, it can become a prison. And when you think that it's actual reality.
Yeah. 100%. Wow. 100%, man.
Wow.
And we're
It's a
born
trip.
into it. It's like we're conditioned into the language. We don't have a choice.
Oh,
We have
yeah.
to almost find our way out of the computational language thinking and see beyond it, and realize it's not language. We're not tied just to language. There's a deeper meaning behind the words, or
Well,
how we
there's
use the words.
and there's deeper meaning to like spelling a word. You know, we hear spelling and we're like, oh, that's just a word, but like spell, the base of spell is kind of, I don't know the
Magic.
definition. Yeah, basically, right? It's like a way to, let me just look up what spell means, but
There's for sure a connection with the fact that you spell words, and spells are like, you know, magical incantations. Like, isn't there some
yeah,
connection
so
with abracadabra as well? Isn't that some kind of magic word as well?
Mm-hmm.
right. And something I heard just last year was you know, the Bible was the greatest form of magic, because it's just words that are, you know, spelling that creates words that makes people, that kind of, you know, just like puts, I don't know, I heard that quote and it stuck with me, but I don't think it's just the Bible. I think it's just words in general. Like words put spells on us, but they also, because it's like once it's that, like once a computer is a computer, it's nothing else but a computer. But like really, it's more than that. But so it's kind of like a spell, because it's like you can't get out of that. It's just computer, you know, in that language, you know.
It limits it. It makes it, yeah, it limits its
It
possibilities.
quantifies it. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting stuff, man. And it is hypnotic. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And you can't get out of it, because like we're trying to talk about it using language.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're like talking about how language isn't real and it limits. And it's like the way that we do that, the way that we have that conversation is with language. So we're fucking in the trap, my friends. We're in
We're
it.
in
Well,
the trap.
Yeah, but knowing that it's just a concept, a framework, and a tool for us to navigate reality allows you to detach from it. I think that's the important part. And then you can see through it, and you can see like people arguing over semantics, and you're like, dudes, you're fucking
semantics.
saying the same thing. Like you're just using different words. And it's like, it's crazy, because you suddenly now you're not attached to the words anymore. You just see them as vehicles for meaning, vehicles for guidance, wisdom, whatever, right? So then you're like, whatever, you call yourself this, I call myself that. Who gives a shit? Right. Like even your name, it's like somebody, you know, my kids call me mom all the time. And my kid's friend was over the other day, and I went to say goodnight to them. They were watching TV, and my daughter, my oldest, she goes, night, mom. And then I just walk away. Like I don't even say anything. Like I'm like, night. Like I don't think about it. And then I overhear her friend going, Kiana, that was your dad. Like that was weird to her, right? But for me, it's like mom, dad, whatever, parent, you know, I don't give a shit. Like when you call me mom, that's a compliment. Like you view me in the same light as her. Damn, I must be doing an awesome job, right? So,
Cool.
but some people get, you know, bent about words, and it's like, fuck, dude, they're just mouth sounds. Like, chill out.
Yeah, language is a two point process. You know, it's like I think Terrence McKenna said it's like the closest thing we have to telepathy. It pretty much is telepathy.
It
It's
is
me using my mouth noises, my dancing of my words, my dancing of my lips and my tongue to convey what I have in my brain computer to yours. And we somehow create some kind of cohesion with the words. But the thing is, what I say in a certain word might not mean the same thing to yours in your
Right.
dictionary. You know, we all have dictionaries in our head, but my meaning might be slightly different from yours.
Right.
So yeah, if you
And
go
that's
beyond the meaning, like the dictionary meaning, you'll see the truth, and that's where spelling comes in. It's like
exactly.
there's something greater that's behind our words. You know, the intentionality and the energy we put into the words.
I think that's part of the spell that we're in with language. So another thing Terrence said is the English language, all the languages basically that we have are unfinished languages. Now, what does he mean by that? As if there's eventually going to be a finished product? I don't think so. Words, there can always be new words for things, but I think what I take from it is that the ability to, like you said, portray one word to another person, it doesn't fully get at what the one person means. Like, you know, a lot of times it does, but a lot of times it doesn't. And there's like more meaning that I'm trying to convey, but I can't because we're only, you know, restricted to the words that we know and that they know. But there, and then not to tie it in, well, yeah, to tie it into a psychedelics again. There was one time I remember I took acid. I really haven't done psychedelics that much, but there was one time I was in like 10th grade and my friend and I took it, and it was like raining out, but it was very light. But we didn't know it was raining out. We were at the end of one of our streets, and we were just like, yo, it is crazy that I'm this entity being and you're this entity being, and I say something and you know exactly what I'm saying. Now, in that state of mind, and I don't mean state of mind as if it's like diminished state of mind. Actually, I think it's a heightened state of mind. I think it's something to be, you know, looked at like praised in a way, because the fact that we could have it. But basically, it was like, yeah, we were just both came to that realization. We're like two monkeys and we're talking to each other. It's wild, you know. It's like it's so cool. But yeah, I mean, I guess what's the question is like, what's next? Do we find another way to relate, you know? And I think the eyes, like for me in our ritual, one thing we do is eye gazing, and I think the eyes hold so much meaning. Almost, if you can get to the point, and I think it's hard to do. I've been able to, I think, to get to there because I've been doing it for 2 years now. But with my brother or my best friend, if I'm there and I looking in their eye and they're allowing me to look in their eye, it's like it's a two-person effort. It's not just a simple, I mean, you can get a lot of meaning just by looking at someone in their eyes, um there, it's a two-person thing, so it's like, and I think there's a lot conveyed just through eye gazing rather than, you know, words. Words can always get it.
Yeah,
I got to log off pretty quick, but I was wondering if oh, never mind. I want to know what this eye gazing business is all about, because these guys keep mentioning it. And like, give me a method so I can try it out with my wife or something and see what it's all about.
Yo, I'm
So
sorry.
what do you do with
say,
this eye gazing? Can you give me just like a quick breakdown of like, you know, how long you do it for? What does it entail? Just a quick and nasty before I have to log off.
Yeah, let me give you a quick breakdown and a very quick example. It's not something that we ever like planned. It just kind of happened naturally. We were up there. What we do is we smoke, we sit in silence for 10 minutes, or try to do it for 10 minutes. It's very hard. And then, you know, naturally we would just like kind of look up and look at each other. I think normally we would talk, but for a while we were just kind of, you know, at this point it was, you know, we were like, we didn't say anything. We were just looking at each other's eyes, and I was just looking at my brother, and I was like, holy, like crap, there's so much in there that I'm not accessing and not allowing myself to feel because we use words, because we use words, because we, you know, have the ability to kind of fend off certain things that we can portray, because we don't want to let someone in completely, because that opens up a whole world of emotions and insecurities and stuff. So, but we did it and we stuck with it for a long time, and we realized, like, he was like, holy shit, like I feel a lot of what you're going through. Immediately had way more compassion for each other, way more understanding for what each other's been through, more gratitude for myself and his self. And
so you guys like sit cross-legged face to face and you just look into each other's eyes. You sync up your breathing, I think Ryan mentioned. Is that something you try to do as well?
Yeah, so like that wasn't what we did at first, but I think what we've found over time is that, like, if you're able to breathe in sync, that it gets a little deeper, you know, because it's not only are we like just sitting there, we're also like putting an effort towards, there's so much things that go on physiologically, but yeah, basically, yeah, we do some breathing and maybe some humming if together in sync, or was try to get in sync. But yeah, so like, let me give you a quick example is like, yeah, we'll be sitting there looking at each other. And one time I went there and I think I like drank a little bit the night before, so I was hungover, so I wasn't like as willing to participate as normal. And my friend Tom was like, yo, there's nothing there. Like, he was just like, you're not letting me in. And I'm like, well, I'm like, is it my fault? And he's like, no, it's not your fault. It's just like something is there blocking it. So
wow.
So we were like this far apart, and then all of a sudden he was like, I was like, well, let's try harder. I'm like, what the hell? What does that mean? All right. So we got like a little bit closer, and we're like looking at each other like this, and it's like he's starting to see more, and then eventually we're literally like, our noses are like this far away from each other, and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on, but all of a sudden tears start coming down his eyes, tears start coming down my eyes, and he's like, yeah, I see you. It just took a little effort. And then we were just looking at each other for like 5 minutes, and I know that sounds silly. I mean, it could sound silly, but it was honestly, it was a moment. It was a real moment that allowed us to kind of take a step forward together and understand each other better, have more gratitude for each other, and just relate better. Like now we talk, man. Now we talk pretty much every day. And before, a couple months ago, before that happened, it was once a week, maybe, if that. I mean, awesome. We'd see each other once a week, so that was their minimum. But yeah,
that's powerful.
But man, I'd love to do that with you guys, because I feel like we're getting to know each other better. And no, we're not at the same level of intimacy that I am with other people, like my brother and my friend, but like, yeah,
this is how you get there with people. It sounds like
exactly.
That's the whole point, right? I mean, and if you're already intimate with those people, it just takes you deeper. I mean, I think it sounds like a pretty awesome experience. I'm gonna have to try it.
I can tell you really quick, a subjective experience for me. It was like I was able to see my brother from when he was a little kid, like young, like 5-6 years old. But like the longer I did it, the slowly it would like slowly like grow up in age and mature. And I was able to see him as like a 70, 80-year-old man. And I was like, oh my gosh, like
whole life. Yeah. Wow.
Whole life. And it's like, I don't want to let my whole life go by and then see you at that age and then finally realize that like there's some potential here. There's something between us. There's something with everyone in the world. It's like, it's just like this grand realization that has been very helpful for keeping me clean and keeping me, off the addiction drugs, the drugs of choice, and just kind of pushes me to, keep trying. And it just shows me, I'm not alone. And
yep.
And I feel like you two would be really good, potential partners doing this, because you guys are already kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to, just like knowing yourselves, being introspective, spirituality. I'm lucky to know you guys.
I would stare lovingly into either of your gazes in a heartbeat, brother. Seriously, I'm joking, but I'm serious. I would do that with you guys for sure. And I want to try it with my wife. I want to try it with my kids, see what happens, like just sounds like an amazing experience. And I've heard you guys mention it a bunch of times, and I have had this internal resistance to it every time you guys mention it. And in my experience, whenever I feel that kind of resistance, that's the direction I need to go in. So I'm really glad you told me more about it, because there's something about my ego doesn't want to do it, which means I need to do it. You know what I'm saying? So dude, thank you for sharing.
For sure. Every Sunday, even though I know it's probably going to happen or it might happen, sometimes every once in a while it doesn't happen, but like every freaking time I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I'm looking the other way, because I don't want him to look at me and be like, hey man, let's do this. And you
don't want to be seen. Yeah. It's so interesting, man.
It takes I don't know if the concerted is the right word, but concerted effort, or like a real effort from both people. Otherwise, and there's been many times where they're looking at my eyes, they're just like, I'm not getting anything from you. And it's like in my mind, I'm like, I say out loud, really? But in my mind, I'm like, yeah, of course you're not, because I'm not going to let you. What I would say is, it sucks, but like, that's life, man. But like, what I would say is start slow.
Okay.
I did it with my parents, my older brother, not my younger brother, who I do it every week, other people. And we did it for like 15 to 30 seconds max. I think we tried to go for a minute, and I think some of us didn't even last a minute.
Okay, good. Noted.
But when you're in a safe space and you really trust the person, like, or not trust person, but when you practice it, like we can do it for 5 to 10 minutes, which is
that's wild.
up there. So
I'm gonna build up to that, guys. I hope you have a great conversation. Unfortunately, I have to log off, but thanks for having me, and yeah, look forward to seeing the rest of this conversation online in a little bit. Thanks, Gary, for hosting, like always. Appreciate it.
For sure. See you, man.
Thanks,
Have a
Oliver.
great-
Yeah, that's pretty powerful, man. It seems like the ultimate ego killer. Like you can just,
Without
you're
drugs.
forced. Yeah, without drugs. Like you're forced to look into the depths of somebody's soul
Yeah.
for, X amount of time. And it's like you don't have any other choice but to recognize that that is somebody else. That's another being. Because, our ego tells stories like, I'm me, I'm important, look at me. And I'm separate. But I don't know, I've never done it, but it seems like something where you just, you have no other choice but to just recognize that there is somebody else.
Yeah, you get it. We got to do it. Me and you, not right here, obviously. It doesn't work on the computer.
Yeah. Plus, I'd have to look in the camera like this, and I wouldn't be looking at
right.
you.
Exactly. It wouldn't work. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
How much soul does this camera thing have? It's like eyes are. You're right. Eyes are windows of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.